18, slide number 18. Okay, let's move on. Light and shadow. Okay. Now, under the topic of light, this is what you need to know. This is what you need to know under the topic of light. Number one, you need to recognize that the object can be seen when it reflects light or when it is a source of light. We can see an object, why? When it reflects light or when it is a source of light. Number two, you must recognize that a shadow is formed when the light is completely or partially blocked by an object. A shadow is formed when the light is completely or partially blocked by an object. Next, you must know, right? You must know the transparency of materials. You must be able to investigate the transparency of material, okay, to light and to communicate the finding. Meaning, you know, how much light can pass through objects. Okay, we know that light can pass through some objects, but in some objects allows only some light to pass through, but some objects do not allow any light to pass through. Okay, like wood, for example. Wood is opaque because it doesn't allow any light to pass through. Okay, so these are your learning objectives under the topic of light. You must know these three things. Okay, let's move on. Now, why do we need light? Number one, light is not a matter. Why? Because remember, let's recall, matter is anything that has mass and occupies space. But light has no mass and it doesn't occupy space. Okay, so, but what is light then? Light is a form of energy. Okay, light is a form of energy. We need light to see things around us. Without light, we cannot see. We cannot see things. Okay, so you can see here, we can see the tree here because the tree reflects light that is given up by the sun to our eyes. And this bulb here of light, so we can see this bulb because it is a source of light. Right? Now, what are sources of light? Objects that gives out light is known as sources of light. During the day, the sun is our main source of light. If we are outdoors, you can see the sun is our main source of light. The sun gives off its own light. It brightens our surrounding and helps us to see the things around us. But at night, we use other sources of light to help us see. Okay? At night, we use other sources of light to help us see. That's why at night, cars, they have to switch on the headlamps. At the streets, you can see street lights. At home, you must switch on the lights. Why? Because at night, there's no sun. Okay, the sun, you are not able to use the source of light from the sun to see at night. Okay, that's why you need to use other sources of light to help you see at night. Now, how are we able to see the objects around us? Although most of the things around us are not sources of light, we can see them. Why? Because these things reflect light into our eyes. These things reflect light into our eyes. When light bounces off something, we say that light is reflected. When light bounces off something, we say that light is reflected. So you can see here, okay, these eyes, okay, it is able to see this toy. Why? Because the light from the candle, the light that is given up by the candle, is reflected off this toy car and into the eyes. That is why you're able to see this toy car. Now take note of the arrows. Take note of the arrow. Now, if there are questions regarding light, the arrows are very important. In which direction the arrow points is very important. Right? Now, why we are able to see through some objects but not others? So look at the objects below. They are made of materials such as wood, metal, and some types of plastic, cardboard, and clay. Such material do not allow light to pass through them. Okay, we cannot see through this object at all. So you can see wood here, metal, and clay. Okay, they do not allow light to pass through. Why are we able to see through some objects but not others? If you take a look at these objects here, they are made of paper, some types of plastic, and cloth. Such material only allow some light to pass through them. Okay, sometimes you call them translucent objects. Translucent object allows some light to pass through. Opaque object do not allow any light to pass through. So we cannot see these objects clearly. Yeah? We cannot see through these objects clearly. Right. What about these objects? Now, in these objects, such as glass and plastics, this material allow most light to pass through them. We can see through these objects clearly. Okay, we call these objects transparent objects. Okay, we call this material or objects transparent object. Okay, like my glasses here. Okay, it allows all light to pass through, so it is transparent. But some glasses, like sunglasses, allow only some light to pass through. So we call them translucent glasses. Okay. Right, now shadow. How are shadows formed? Now, first of all, we need to know that light travels in straight line. Light travels in straight line. Now, shadows are formed where we are able to see shadow because light travels in straight line. Okay, a shadow is formed when light is partially or completely blocked by an object. Now, how do we see shadow? All right, now shadow is formed because light is partially or completely blocked by an object. So you can see this cube. Now this is a light source. You can see the shadow behind this cube because why? This cube blocks the light and a shadow is formed behind this cube. Now what are the different shapes or different types of shadow? Now shadows comes in different shapes. Okay, so the shadow of an object usually has the same shape as the object. It usually has the same shape of the object. So if you take a look here at this man, right? As you can see the shadow will be the shape of the man. And the shape of the shadow changes when the light source shines at different parts of the object. Okay, so if you take a look at the sun, and if we have a stick, all right, the shadow will change direction and the size of the shadow will also change. Okay, early in the morning, if you notice carefully the shadow, if you stand outside, all right, your shadow will be very long. But as the sun rises, okay, in the afternoon, the shadow will become very short. Okay, you can hardly see your shadow because your shadow is right underneath you. But when the sun starts to set, the shadow will appear or it gets longer in the opposite direction. And it gets longer and longer in the opposite direction. Okay. So that is why in the past, people use the shadow or measure shadow to tell time. In the past, people can use shadows, length of the shadow to tell the time of the day. Okay. So the size of the shadow changes if the distance between the light source and the object changes. Now take a look at this. You can see this teddy bear. Okay. So when the teddy bear, when the toy is close to the light, we can see that the shadow is big. Okay, you can see this big shadow. But when you put the toy further away from the light, the shadow becomes smaller. When you put the toy even further from the light source, okay, you can see here the shadow form is very tiny. Okay, right? So you can see here. So it means that this experiment shows that the size of the shadow changes if the distance between the light source and the object changes. Okay. Now let's summarize the topic of light. Now we know light is a form of energy. Light allows us to see when an object gives off its own light or when an object reflects light into our eyes. These are the sources of light: the sun, the star, fire, torches, and the lamp. Now, is the moon a source of light? Anyone? Is the moon a source of light? Ah, very good. The moon is not the source of light. Very good. Okay, light can pass through materials such as glass, which allow most light to pass through them. It can partially block by materials such as frosted glass, which allows some light to pass through them. Or it can be completely blocked by materials such as ceramic, wood, okay, which allows no light to pass through them. So when light is blocked or partially blocked, shadows are formed. Okay, all right. Okay, so we have come to the end of this topic of light. Now, questions. Anyone have questions on the topic of light? So far, quite easy, right? Is light a form of plasma? Okay, plasma is not in the syllabus. Okay, so when you are studying, maybe some books they mention about that. So do not, we are focusing on preparing for your exams and PSLE. Okay, so make sure that whatever that you are studying is in line with the syllabus. But if let's say you, for your own enrichment, you can read beyond what you have learned in the class. Okay. Is lighter a source of light? Okay, lighter is a source of light when when it's lighted. Okay, but just a plain lighter without lighted is definitely not a source of light. How does the size of the light affects the shadow? Okay, Hemi is asking, how does the size of the light? What do you mean by the size of the light? Is it the brightness of the light? Or how's the size of the light source? Meaning if the torchlight you use bigger torchlight. So if the intensity of the light is brighter, so the shadow form will still be, the shadow form will be dependent on the transparency of the object. So if the object is opaque, so no matter the light is blue or red or white, the shadow form must be completely black. All right. So whether the light is, white light or, bright light, okay, because the color of the shadow form is dependent on the transparency of the object rather than the light itself. Okay, how do people read time by shadow? Okay, you can, there is a way. Of course, you see by using shadow, uh, the size of the shadow will change according to the time of the day. Like in the afternoon, the size of the shadow will be very small, and then at the in the morning and the evening, the time of the length of the shadow will be very long. Okay, so from the proportion, okay, they can actually estimate the time of the day. Okay, perhaps you can try and look up in the internet, okay, to see exactly how it is being done. Okay, Talha explains it when the light is shined on top of an object, it is either a straight line. Okay, but okay. Now, the shadow itself or the shape of the shadow will depends on a few factors. Now, if let's say an object is round, for example, let's say this is a round object, all right, and let's say this is the screen or the table. So if your light source is at the top here, okay, let's say your light source is at the top, okay. Okay, now let's say this is a tire. Now what is the shape of the shadow you would see? Will you see a round shadow or a rectangular shadow? Okay, you will not see round. If this is a tire, you will actually see shadow which is rectangular. Okay, at the bottom, the shadow will come up as rectangular. Okay, if you make the tire stand vertically, okay, the shadow that you see at the bottom will be rectangular. Right? Okay, Zafir asks, why does blue light helps us sleep better? Okay, this one I'm not so sure, Zafira. Okay, this is out of our topic. Okay, but very interesting question. In secondary school, you learn that light is made up of different colors. All right, like the rainbow colors. Okay, so you learn more in at secondary school. Is refraction in the syllabus? No, it is not in the syllabus. Refraction is in secondary school. Refraction is how the light, the degree of the light, the angle of light changes as it passes through an object. For example, in the swimming pool, if you look at the swimming pool, if you drop a coin at the swimming pool, the coin may appear nearer to you. Okay, but it's actually much further in. Okay, this is due to the changes in the angle of the light, how light is traveled as it passes through. But this is not in your syllabus. Talha asks, why is moon not a source of light? Okay, moon is not a source of light, because if man goes to moon and light, then man will be burned. Okay, but we can see moon. The reason being that we can, it is reflected. It reflected the light from the sun. Okay, I give you a simple example. Now let's say this is Earth, and this is moon. Okay, this is moon, and this is the sun. This is the sun. From the sun, okay, this direction, and then it reflects. Okay, so people here living in this area is able to see the moon. Okay, why? It's not because that the moon gives out light, but because it receives light from the sun, and the light gets reflected, and you can see on Earth, you can see the moon. Okay. Okay, yes, Shami, what's your question? I'll take one last question before we move on to the final topic on heat and temperature. Yes, Shami, yes. What is your question? Actually, moon got no light. No, moon has no light. Moon, if you go to the internet, you can see the moon itself. Okay, you can see because man has gone to the moon. So it's not a source of light. It does not give out light. Yes, Alman, correct. Moon reflects light from the sun. Okay, all right, let's move on to the next topic. No other question? Okay, let's move on to the next topic.